great to be joined by Tanner Kern. He does absolutely tremendous work over at DraftKings. And Tanner, it is great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, thanks for having me. Couldn't be a better night to join. We got Game 7 tomorrow, so excited to talk about that.
And by the way, Tanner, you're 3 for 3. Last 3 times, we'll mix up the camera angle if you're watching on VSiN.com, YouTube TV, and you know what? We're mixing things up with regards to the breakdowns because now we've got a Game 7 between the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. Last time a team in the NBA went from down 3-0 to force a Game 7. I think that you have to go all the way back to Dirk Nowitzki and one of those Dallas Mavericks team. It's been quite a while, and hey, it's a team that was down 3-0 that is a favorite here in the Boston Celtics. This line opened up at a 8.5. This has been bet down to a 7, and the total now between 203 to 203.5. How do you evaluate this spot? Because I did think that the 8.5 was a little bit too high for a Game 7. I do think that this is going to be a rather tight game, but that said, I do think that the Celtics are destined to become that first team in history to be able to erase a 3-0 deficit.
Now, I did think this line was extremely disrespectful when it opened, but at the same time, too, I'm looking at where the money is right now, and sharp money is all over Boston, at least at -7.5. 54% of the money and 22% of the bets are on Boston. That would indicate that sharp money is there because you have a smaller bet percentage, which is a larger handle. The whales, the guys that can shift lines, they're the ones putting money on that -7.5 there. So that's something to look at. The public is all over +7.5, and I see this being a public line because obviously the Heat have been very good throughout this series, and you look at them getting 7.5 points, you're obviously going to want to jump on that. But I do think the Celtics show up at home, become that first team to overcome a 3-0 deficit. They're better. The Heat are a team of undrafted free agents that have been playing better than they are. Jimmy Butler didn't deliver in the last game, and we saw what that did to this Miami team. Listen, the Celtics are lucky to be here. I'm not going to lie about that, but the fact of the matter is they are a better team. They have all the momentum in the world, especially after that Derek White tip-in buzzer beater, and I do think they cover this -7.5. It might take till the fourth quarter, and it's going to be late, and it might take foul shots, but I do like them to get the job done and lay the points here.
With the Boston Celtics, it has been so interesting to take a look at this team just all throughout the postseason. And I do think that Derek White is a little bit of an X factor here because right now I'm seeing his player prop at 14.5. And I think if he goes under, that's going to cause the Miami Heat to maybe not win the game outright, but I think that it's going to cause this game to be close. But if he goes over, I think that the Celtics do have a better chance of being able to cover this game. Is there any other player props that you take a look at and you correlate it? Like, if player X goes off for a specific team, it bodes very well / not so well if they go under for them to be able to hang in this game?
So if you've noticed with the player props, every line's inflated in this spot, at least for the stars.
Yes.
Jason Tatum's up to 31.5, I believe. He's usually around 28, 29, 30.5, depending on the night. And then Jimmy Butler's up to 28.5, 29.5, and we've seen that line fluctuate as well. So it seems like every star is getting an additional point added onto their total there. So that first off is going to make me go under on Jimmy Butler. I'm going to play the numbers here, and the fact of the matter is Jimmy Butler has gone under 28.5 points 4 times out of 6 in this series. And we've seen a really strong defensive intensity from Boston, especially against him. It affected him in the last game. I think he's going to be a lot better than 5 for 21 from the field, which he was in Game 6. But still, I'm going to play the under there. I think it's going to take a team effort for Miami to get the job done, and I don't like him to go over his point total. And then I do like a little parlay here. Jason Tatum double-double parlayed with the Celtics to win the game. I'm willing to lay the points at -7.5 here, but for a parlay at +140, you really can't beat it with a money line and a Tatum double-double. He has done this in 5 of 6 games. 4 of those have been with rebounds. 1's been with an assist. And you know he's going to contribute on the glass. Scoring-wise shouldn't be an issue, obviously. He's going to get those 10 points that he needs. But I think he's going to be all over the boards in this game. Whether he's scoring or not, he's had the ability to stay locked in on the glass, and that makes me pretty confident in his double-double for Game 7.
And I think that that's a good look on Jason Tatum as well, because Jason Tatum has been able to stuff the stat sheet. His player prop at 31.5, I think, is a little bit lofty, because even in game number 6, I believe that he had 31 points in that game, and I do think that the hook might come into play a little bit. I think that just in terms of taking a look at some of these guys as well, because everyone, you always want to take a look at the points itself. I do think that there is a little bit of value if you look a little bit further down the list, like assists, rebounds, what have you, because something that I noted a little bit earlier is that if you took a look at game number 6, what we were able to get out of Derek White was also 3 blocks. He did a nice job in terms of rebounds. I think there might be a little bit of value to be able to unearth there, because while we always love players to be able to score points and things like that, being able to cash something in terms of like a rebounds, a blocks prop, that cash is the same as being able to cash on points.
Yeah, you got to look at the under-the-radar players in this game, because the Celtics have their player props boosted for like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Those guys are going to get additional points on their total, but points are going to come off totals in other places, whether it be a Marcus Smart, a Derek White, and Al Horford. Look for those guys to step up in these spots. When the Celtics have won, it's really been through team basketball, and I think Jason Tatum does have to take the lead in Game 7, but the whole team has come through, and that's when the Celtics have been best this season. They have their strength in numbers. Marcus Smart's made some huge shots down the stretch. I'd look for his 3-point total just because he's been really good from beyond the arc there. Derek White's obviously been sensational. Robert Williams has stepped up at times in the paint. So there's a lot of guys that can really help out this Celtics team, and those are the guys to look at for player props. Same goes for Miami. I mean, Duncan Robinson, I know he got a lot of scrutiny for missing those wide open looks down the stretch, but he was huge. He made some big shots, and he's a guy that's not going to have a huge player prop to overcome, right? His points total is not going to be that high because we're not used to Duncan Robinson scoring points. We're not used to the Heat running plays for Duncan Robinson in the fourth quarter. So that's a guy that you should look at as well. So try to stay away from the stars in Game 7. I think that could be a good strategy. I know I'm kind of going against it with the Jason Tatum double-double combined with the money line parlay and then Jimmy Butler under his points. But don't be afraid to look at these bench players for player props in Game 7.
Yep, absolutely. And you can get a double-double, and you can still hit that under on Jason Tatum for 31.5 as well. And a guy that I was highlighting a little bit earlier in the show was actually Duncan Robinson as well. I do feel like it was just a little bit of a lack of depth for the Miami Heat, especially with Gabe Vincent being a little bit less than 100%. I do think that means a little bit more Duncan in our lives. So I do like that. And just want to get your thoughts here, as we do have Tanner Kern of DraftKings joining me right here on the Greg Peterson Experience on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, in terms of if it is the Celtics versus the Denver Nuggets in the finals, because I would be rather surprised if the Miami Heat are able to get up off the mat and they're able to win this Game 7. But I do think that in terms of a Heat versus Celtics final, that would be interesting, and it really would be the ultimate test of rest versus rust. A team being able to get a clean sweep versus a team that had to claw their way back from being down 3-0. And I do think that would lend itself to the Denver Nuggets having a little bit of an upper hand in the first few games of this series, because they're going to be well rested. Meanwhile, the Celtics certainly have had to dump out everything that they've had in the tank in this series.
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, everyone's tired, right? So even though the Nuggets have a huge break heading into the finals, and whether it be the Celtics or the Heat coming in on short rest, they're going to have the motivation and they're going to have the momentum as well. So that's another thing to look at. It's almost better, I believe, to play off short rest right now, because if the Celtics are able to come back, do the reverse sweep, and then go right into the NBA Finals, they have all the momentum in the world. They're going to be the highest team in basketball. So I do like Boston to come through in that series. Again, I've been high on Boston all season. I do think they're the best team in basketball. Nikola Jokic is playing great right now. Same with Jamal Murray and that whole Denver Nuggets team. But I think they're playing a little better than they are as well. And the Celtics still haven't peaked. When Boston steps up, they are the best team in basketball by far. Nobody can play with them, but they tend to give away leads. They were like minus 20,000 on FanDuel with 4 minutes left in Game 6, and they found a way to give it away to the Miami Heat and almost lose that basketball game. So that's the biggest thing with the Celtics. They hold themselves back. But when I look at that series, if they can step up and play their game and the Nuggets kind of, revert back to the mean a little bit, Jamal Murray's not making everything from the three-point line, and they can contain Nikola Jokic down low, which is easier said than done. I do like Boston to win that series. It's probably going to go 6 or 7 games no matter what. But I will be on the Celtics there. They got to win Game 7, though. I'm locked in on that. They need to get this job done before we can even think about the NBA Finals.
And to your point about the Celtics giving away leads, the only bucket that they scored in the final 4:30 or so of game number 6, that would be the Derek White bucket that we saw that barely had enough time to be able to get off. But it's going to be exciting to take a look at Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and it's going to be interesting to take a look at the MLB card for Memorial Day, as Tanner Kern, he's going to be joining me next, and we're going to be taking a look at everything on the diamond on the Greg Peterson Experience on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Tanner Kern, who does great work at DraftKings, taking a look at a little bit of everything. We dove into NBA's Game 7 between the Celtics and the Heat in the last segment. Now let's take a look at some baseball, and I do think that this is a very intriguing card with lots of teams that I like sort of as short to mid-sized favorites, but this is one that's a little bit of a loftier one that I'm going to go on the run line of. This is the Texas Rangers and the Detroit Tigers. Matthew Boyd on the bump for the Tigers, Nathan Eovaldi on the bump for the Texas Rangers, and Eovaldi has been awesome this year. I think there's going to be a little bit of regression with him, but I don't think that it's going to come against the Detroit Tigers. And for Matthew Boyd, I've never really liked him in general. He always jacks up his pitch count, and I think that's a little bit of a rough spot here for the Tigers. I'm not sure where you stand on this one, but the Rangers, number one in the league in terms of runs per game. I think they keep it going against Matthew Boyd.
Yeah, with Jacob deGrom being injured, Nathan Eovaldi has fully stepped up and said, I'm going to be Jacob deGrom. When has this guy ever pitched this good in his career? He's been fantastic. And I really like the Texas Rangers on the run line in this spot because it is a prime run line spot. You have a better team on the roads. They're guaranteed 9 at-bats. They have a better pitcher on the mound, and they have a tremendous offense, which totally trumps the Detroit Tigers. Nathan Eovaldi, 6-2 with a 2.6 ERA and a .97 whip. Any guy with under a 1 whip, I just automatically love, and I want to bet them every single time I have the opportunity to, and that's what Nathan Eovaldi has done for me this season. 66 strikeouts in 69 innings, only 3 homers allowed over that stretch. For the Tigers to win this game or be in this game, they're going to have to hit home runs, and Eovaldi limits those. Matthew Boyd on bump for them, 3-3 with a 5.7 ERA, 1.42 whip. Not very good there. He's giving up a hit per inning. He's also limited home runs, but still, the Texas Rangers can spray the ball around the field, and I really do like them to score in this spot and be up by at least 2 runs when the 9th inning rolls around. Just because Nathan Eovaldi is really going to limit runs, I think the bullpen's going to get the job done against this weak Detroit Tigers offense, and Texas is going to score. They've hit a 25 more home runs this season than Detroit, so right there, I really like them offensively. And their team ERA is a 3.7 compared to Detroit at a 4.4, so all the numbers are indicating that you should bet the Rangers in this spot on the run line.
Yep, absolutely. No disagreement from me, and I think that this one is going to be interesting between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Chicago Cubs, as the Cubs are always infamous for day games, so it wouldn't be Memorial Day without it. You've got Marcus Stroman on the bump for the Cubs, Taj Bradley on the bump for the Tampa Bay Rays, and both of these bullpens have lots of question marks. The Rays, they've had to use their bullpen for more innings than any other team in baseball, and the Cubs' bullpen has not been good all season long. But I really like both of these starters. Marcus Stroman has pitched well all season long. Taj Bradley got lit up in his start against the Toronto Blue Jays, but by and large, getting lots of strikeouts, being able to do a good job of being able to limit the walks. This is personally one where the opener of DraftKings that I'm seeing at an 8.5, I like the under in this spot.
So I'm going to go with the Rays on the money line here. I do like the under, but there's one reason that I really like Tampa Bay, and that's their ability to hit the long ball. 101 homers compared to Chicago at 65. I believe the wind's going to be blowing in at Wrigley, so look for the under. But Tampa Bay's ability to hit the baseball is something that the Cubs just simply can't compete with. Yes, they have guys that can hit the ball all around the field and the guys that can leave the yard. But when I look at it, the Rays just have those critical numbers on offense, get the job done here. Taj Bradley, the 4.4 ERA is not reflective of what he's done this season. He's gotten lit up a little bit, but he's a youngster, right? It's going to happen. The 1.15 whip is something that I love. 4 homers allowed in 24 innings as well. So he's been very good. Same with Marcus Stroman, 4-4 with a 2.95 and a 1.09 whip. Again, the under is probably a good move here, as you said, Greg, but I do like the Rays as long as Bradley can deliver and keep the ball down the zone.
Yep, I do think that this is going to be a nice spot for the under because you mentioned it. Wind should be blowing in about 6 to 8 miles per hour. Nothing overly demonstrative, but that should be able to help out as well. And I do think that both of these starters deliver a gem and then get into 2 relatively not so great bullpens, to say the least. And when you talk about not so great bullpens, the San Francisco Giants come to the forefront as well, but they've been better recently. It's a Giants team that is 21-13 in their last 34 games, and they're playing also a Pittsburgh Pirates team that, man, this offense has went down the toilet bowl as they trot out there the oldest starting pitcher in the big leagues in Rich Hill against Anthony DeSclafani of the San Francisco Giants. 3 runs or fewer in 19 out of the last 24 games for the Pittsburgh Pirates. That has me on the under, and well, I just can't trust in the Pirates until I see a little bit more offense from this team.
Yeah, I can't trust the Pirates at all here. They used to be a really good baseball team. It's hard to remember that. But once they started playing some legitimate competition, they kind of fell down the drain a little bit. I like the Giants here, one of the best home run hitting teams in baseball with 74 bombs. Again, the way to win in baseball is good pitching and really good home run hitting. And they have Anthony DeSclafani on the mound, who's been good this season, 3.43 with a 1.04 whip, 60 innings, 6 home runs allowed, so less than 1 home run per 9 there, 54 hits over that stretch, only 9 walks. He limits his walks. And the one way to give the Pirates life is by walking them around the bases, because they'll get the big hit eventually. They have enough guys that can do that, but if you keep them off the bases, that's going to be money for San Francisco here. Rich Hill on the mound, I can't trust him. He's been decent. I mean, when you look at his age and his ERA and his whip and combine them all together, he's probably the best pitcher in baseball. But the fact of the matter is, you don't win at his age in baseball. 4.27 ERA with a 1.39 whip. Been pretty good limiting the walks, been pretty good with the home runs. His giving up over a hit per inning, which I don't love there, but the Giants are the play in the spot at home. Again, with the home run power here against Rich Hill, I really do like them.
Yep, I'm in total agreement, as we've got Tanner Kern, who does great work at DraftKings, joining me on the Greg Peterson Experience on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're breaking down the Monday MLB card, and you've mentioned whip quite a bit here in the segment, talking about some of these guys have a good one. How about if we take a look at the guy with the best whip in the American League right now? That would actually be Tyler Wells. If you went into a bar and you asked someone that question, I'm sure that you'd be able to stump quite a few people with that one. But that said, he's going to be going up against Logan Allen, who's been pretty solid for the Cleveland Guardians thus far, but Guardians have not been able to have any offense whatsoever. And currently, Guardians are between plus 130 to plus 140 in terms of their money line. You're finding the Orioles anywhere between minus 140 to a minus 150. Starting to get a little bit lofty on the Orioles. I'm still willing to trust them at the minus 144 that I'm seeing at DraftKings. Not sure where you stand on this one, but I'm willing to trust in Tyler Wells along with a really good Orioles bullpen.
Yeah, get it right now, because if you go to sleep tonight, you're going to wake up. It's probably going to be about minus 155, minus 160, honestly. I think there's going to be that much action on Baltimore when the public wakes up tomorrow, just because Tyler Wells has been very good, 0.84 whip. Now, he does miss spots. I talked about this last week when I was on the show, and that leads to home runs. In 57 innings, he has allowed 13 homers. It's not the most favorable stat in the world, but I can live with it just because he does keep guys off the bases. So a lot of times those home runs are solo shots, and I don't see the Guardians hitting a lot of home runs. They've only hit 30 on the season. They have a 226 team average. They have a 298 team OBP. If your team OBP is under 300, I just can't respect you. I can't bet on you in any way whatsoever. Baltimore Orioles are the most fun team in baseball. They've hit 64 bombs this season with a 326 OBP, and nobody is talking about them. It's very disrespectful. They're picked 4th to win the American League East right now. They have the 2nd best record in baseball, I believe. They're right there behind the Rays, and nobody believes they have a chance. They're going to be in the playoffs, and when they get in the playoffs, they could be a threat just because they have a bunch of young guys that believe in each other. Logan Allen on the mound, 1.44 whip. That's concerning to me. Again, limit the home runs. He's only had 3 given up in 32 innings, but 38 hits. So he's keeping the ball down the zone, but he is missing, and that's leading to some hits. So I'm going to be with Tyler Wells and the Baltimore Orioles tomorrow at minus 145. Get it right now, though, because it will be much more juiced when you wake up tomorrow morning.
Yep, I agree with you. I do think that if it would get up to like a minus 160, that might be a little bit of a point of no return. Right now, I like the number, though, so I'm with you there. And how about if we end in France? JP France, he's going to be going for the Houston Astros against the Minnesota Twins, who trot out their Sonny Gray. And with the Minnesota Twins, they open up right around about a plus 115 or so. Now we're finding them more around a plus 105. Still seeing one straight plus 115, but numbers come down a little bit. Astros in between about minus 118 to a minus 125. If we can continue to have the line move in the way that it does, I do think that there's a little bit of value here on the Astros. Not quite as favorable of a pitching matchup for them, but I think that the Astros overall team is able to prevail in this one.
Yeah, I think the Astros overall team is going to prevail here. Sonny Gray's been really good, 4-0, the 1.82 ERA, 1.2 whip. I'm waiting for him to revert back to the mean a little bit. I do think there's going to be some regression, and this is a great spot for that regression to occur against a good Houston Astros offense. Jose Altuve left the yard today. That was his first of the season. When he starts to hit, this team and this lineup is going to become very complete, especially behind Yordan Alvarez, who's been sensational. Now, Minnesota has hit 19 more homers than Houston. They can play, and don't get too down on them. They're 27 and 26. They haven't been able to put wins together necessarily, but they have the components to do it. I just still like Houston at 31-21, 14-11 at home with JP France on the mound, 119 whip. This guy can pitch, and I think we're going to see that tomorrow.
I do think so as well. What we always see is Tanner Kern on this show providing great analysis. He does great work at DraftKings. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment.